Good evening, and welcome to our forum for the Lee Summit School Board in the April 2nd election. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Kansas City, Jackson, Clay, and Platte counties. I am Anitra Steele, and I am a member of the League. The League of Women Voters is a trusted grassroots, nonpartisan organization whose members do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we neither endorse nor oppose candidates or political parties, we are directly involved in the sharing of important issues. Our mission is to empower voters and defend our democracy. We envision a democracy where every citizen has the knowledge, the right, the desire, and the confidence to participate. Our membership is open to everyone. I'd like you to know the other League members volunteering with me. Cheryl Harness is our timer, and our Zoom is monitored by Dave Montjoy. I lead our forum's admin team. The public has sent in the questions via the League's website, lwvkc.org. Tonight, we welcome our moderator, Elizabeth Darr.
Thank you so much, Anitra. I'm delighted to join you for the Lee Summit School Board Candidate Forum. We have 6 candidates running for 2 seats, and we're honored to have all 6 candidates here tonight. The forum will last approximately 90 minutes. I will ask each candidate the same question selected from those submitted by the public. The order of candidate responses has been determined by random order. Each candidate will be given 60 seconds to respond to the question, and then 2 minutes for a closing statement. This forum will be recorded and available at the League's website, lwvkc.org, and also at YouTube. All of the candidates running for this office have been invited, and everybody's here. So, welcome, candidates. Please answer the question that is asked and stick to the topic. There won't be any immediate rebuttals, but you can go back to an issue during your 2-minute closing remarks. So, let's get started. The first question is easy, and it's Stacy Myers who will be up first. Please introduce yourself and tell us what motivated you to run for the Board of Education and what personal skills and knowledge about schools and governance make you qualified to be a school board member.
Well, good evening. Thank you for hosting. My name is Stacy Myers. I am a retired career teacher, having taught the last 31 years. The final 21 years were in Lee Summit. I was motivated to run for the school board because I really believe that the board needs a teacher representation on the board. I think it's a benefit not only to the board, to the students, to the staff, to the teachers, to our families that we serve, to have someone with that perspective. In terms of my personal goals or agenda items for what I would like to see happen as a board member, continuing to help students achieve academic excellence and work to their full potential, making sure that an educator's perspective is shared and considered before big policy decisions are made or implemented, and protecting public education in our community. I'm a big believer in public education. Our school district has been the backbone of Lee Summit for many years, and I would like to continue to see that be the case. Thank you.
Thank you. Ruben? Ruben, we can't hear you. We still can't hear you. Ruben, I'm going to come back to you just in the interest of time. Bill, you want to go ahead? Probably if you unplug your headset, it'll work. Ruben. Bill, you go ahead for right now. And then we'll
Okay, good evening. My name is Bill Haley. I am a product of the public school system. My family and I live here in Lee Summit. My wife and I have raised 4 children between us. Two of our children have gone completely through Lee Summit, beginning at Highland Park Elementary, and they both graduated from Lee Summit High School. I'm compelled to run, or feel compelled to run for the school board based on perceived need. I think there's obviously always a need for good public service. I've got a good background in management and leadership in large organizations, and I think that particularly qualifies me to serve in the Lee Summit School District, which is a large organization with 2,900 employees and almost 18,000 students. So my background lends itself to a large organization such as that, and I think I can make a significant contribution to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Ruben, you want to have another go? Okay, we're going to go ahead and let Dan make his opening statement.
Is that any different?
Yes.
There you go.
Oh,
Okay, sorry.
unfortunate. Yes, my apologies for that.
We're just glad we can hear you now. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't know why it was working before. And
Okay,
little
so
gremlins. But yeah, so okay, quickly. Reuben Mitchell. I'm a dad. Got 3 little boys, 8, 6, and 3. Got another one on the way. Another boy in June. And what really motivated me to get interested in the school board was my oldest got into kindergarten and started paying more attention to schools, and eventually got an email from the district saying, hey, that you could sign up to be a school board member. And so that sparked, and tried to get into a lot of the different committees and school board meetings and watching the finance stuff. And it just started getting more and more and more fascinating for me. Because I have 3 different kids, they have 3 different personalities. And I thought, wow, this is really interesting when you expand it all to the 18,000 kids we've got. It's fascinating. So I'm really interested in working with people and doing what we can for our kids.
thank you. Dan.
All right, I'll go ahead and get started. So my name is Dan Blake, and I appreciate everybody for being here. My wife and I have lived in Lee Summit for about 22 years, been married the whole time. We've got a little girl who currently attends 4th grade at Mason Elementary. I work for probably the largest engineering and construction firm here in Kansas City as a project manager and account manager, and I run a significant business there out of that group. And I think that uniquely qualifies me for a position on the board. Obviously, we have some pretty large budgets, and really everything that, all these needs that we're going to talk about tonight ultimately come back to that almighty dollar. So I hope to bring some private sector expertise to the group, and really work with everybody across the board to get the students everything that they need. So like I said, I hope to bring a level of sophistication, organizational structure, culture. My top priority is student success, period. Thank you.
Thank you. Juanice?
I'm Juanice Williams, and thanks for having me. I'm running for the board because I have a strong passion for people. I believe we have some of the best schools and teachers and families in the district, and childhood mental health is on the rise and continues to be on the rise. And I have a large concern for that. I'm a social worker, and I've been a social worker for 20 years. I started my career in child welfare, and I was a school social worker for many years, and now I teach at UCM. I teach students how to become social workers. I have lived in the school district for 24 years, and I had 4 daughters that graduated from Lee Summit West. I have a daughter that's a teacher in the district as well. I've worked with many families that are now the families that are in Lee Summit. And I feel like there's a disconnect between school and home. So I hope to create embedded social worker program to help address the mental health concerns in the district.
Thank you. Roderick?
First, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity for us to be able to share. Also, I would like to acknowledge everyone that will be viewing this recording, and thank you for your time and your attention towards this election. I currently serve as the Board of Education for Lee Summit School Board, and what I will tell you is in my first term, I have completed the highest level of certification that there is to receive. That means I've received my advanced, my master's, and my distinguished certification through the Missouri School Board of Association of showing that I am committed to governance and to be able to lead our district to its next height. What I would tell you is we have a great district in Lee Summit, and I want to continue that work with our fiscal management, teacher support. I've been a staunch teacher supporter, school safety and well-being for our students, transparency and accountability, and then also our special education and gifted programs. And so I look forward to the questions on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ruben, you're going to be answering the next question first. What is the major challenge currently facing the Lee Summit schools, and how will you deal with
it? Excuse me. Well, I think there are many things that we could point to, big ones, small ones, depending on who you talk to. And so to encompass all of those, I believe teamwork is probably our biggest challenge that we're going to need to all get together. We all can't have everything that we want. And so that's going to be the approach to try and figure out what we can do for the district. Probably the two top ones that I can think of that most people would look at would be our finances and where to put those dollars and the emphasis, but also, looking at my children and talking to a lot of other parents in the district, it seems like behavior is an issue that impedes instruction and learning. And so I'd be interested in getting to the bottom of that and improving that across the board.
Thank you. Roderick.
So right now, I think there's a few challenges that we have. I think the first challenge that we have is the continued attack on public education. We know that there are bills out there with open enrollment, with being able to try to defund public education. And so I think it's important that we're continuing to advocate in Jeff City to our lawmakers, letting them know that public funds, taxpayers, they deserve to stay with our public schools. The second thing that I think is we need to continue having support for our teachers. And so what does that look like? We have to continue being able to increase pay for them, not only for our teachers, but our paraprofessionals and also our classified staff. For we know that the public school system is the bedrock of our democracy for all of our students. And then lastly, I think we have to continue to look at our future planning. And so as we're looking at our bond that will be coming up in 2025, making sure that that is manageable and that we're on time with that budget.
Thank you. Dan?
Yeah, I think we've got quite a few challenges. Although we're an amazing district, there's always things to improve on. So as I mentioned before, I think everything comes back to finances, and I won't belabor that point, but we do got to fund all these great programs that we want to continue to give our students. This is all about the students. But we leave the teachers to implement a lot of this, and teachers are stretched very thin with what we ask them to do on the day in and day out activities. So I'm a big fan of supporting our teachers. As you'll probably hear a common theme tonight, teachers are, they're asked to do everything from being a mental health coach to provide even suicide prevention training to social work, counselors, nurses, security guards, fights in the hallway. Discipline is a huge issue for our teachers, and we need to get back to having a structured classroom approach to keep these students in line and let teachers do their job and let everybody have a good work-life balance.
Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of distractions right now in our environment that we're in. There are a lot of competing interests. As we've discussed in previous times, finances are always an issue. There are never enough resources to implement all of the great ideas that we have to improve our school district. And we do have a great school district. We're producing a lot of great students. We do have a lot of room to improve, though. So I think that's where we need to remain and stay focused, because these competing interests tend to distract us from what our mission is. And our mission is the children, providing the children with a safe environment so that they can become educated, providing our employees and teachers, everyone, a safe environment to work in and a rewarding career environment. So that's the main thrust, is preparing these children for success. And it's the competing interests that are distracting us away from that. I think that we need to stay focused on not letting them be a distraction.
Thank you. Stacy.
Sure. First of all, I think that one of our big challenges is a challenge that's not unique to us at Lee's Summit, but that would be the retention and recruitment of the next generation teacher. We're not alone in having this challenge, but I think that we have to continue to move forward and try to attain the greatest workforce that we can. School board's ground zero for creating the environment. Secondly, along with that, goes along with salary and benefit package for those employees. The district's done a really good job of trying to address incoming salaries to make this place a really, really desirable location to start one's career. But that can't be at the expense of the long-term employees that have been around and doing the work for a number of years. Lastly, another issue to keep an eye on, in my opinion, is whatever's coming out legislatively, whether it's the landfill issue, whether it's the school choice issue or the voucher issue. Those are all things that we need to keep the finger on the pulse.
Thank you. Juanice.
I think there's several things that are challenges that are facing our district. One is definitely the legislation that's in Jefferson City that's being passed around. Many kids don't feel welcome in their own schools regarding the legislation that's being decided in Jefferson City. Something else that is facing is that teachers are being asked to address behaviors and mental health challenges. 1 in 5 kids have untreated mental health issues, and teachers are the ones that are currently left to deal with that. One kid who has a mental health breakdown can tie up several adults in a school all day. Every other school district in our neighboring area has an embedded social work program, so it's definitely something that can be done. And I've talked to several teachers and whatnot, and extra help and extra resources in the school is definitely what's needed.
Thank you. Juanice, you're up for this first one.
All right.
Okay. What do you think schools should do to prepare students to be better members of a global community?
All right. I think starting with our equity program that we already have in place is a good place to start. Social emotional learning is talked about a lot, and it has been proven repeatedly to start with kids from pre-K all the way through 12th grade, to teach them how to deal with their emotions, how to talk things through, how to share their feelings without producing behaviors. Also, it helps to we can help prepare our students for this global world that they're going to go into by increasing the reading that they do and allowing kids to adventure and read into books without being fearful that what they may hear or what they may read is all of a sudden going to be who they become. Critical thinking is important in higher ed. When I have students that have graduated from high school and have moved on, one of the issues is that they're not used to figuring it out and understanding what works okay for you. So being able to increase reading would help with that, or allowing them to read what they want would help with that.
Thank you. Bill.
Okay, I think the best thing we can do to prepare these children to be good members in a global community is to educate them. That's what we're there for anyway. If we don't give them a good education, they are not going to be productive members of a global community. So I think the best thing we can do to prepare them is to give them a good education. We do have a lot of room to improve in that area. We're producing a lot of great students, but we are still producing children that are struggling with the achievement gap, particularly in reading areas and math areas. So I think the best medicine is to provide the children with a good education. Thank you.
Thank you. Roderick?
So I first want to start by saying we have the best teachers. And so to have a notion that our students are not the best, that would indicate that we have teachers that are not the best. No, we have teachers that are truly serving and meeting the needs of our students. However, there is things that the district do have that we can continue to work on. And that is with being able to look at equity. How do we meet the needs of our students exactly where they are? And so does that mean that SEL needs to be implemented in our curriculum with our students that struggle with being able to deal with their emotions or being able to process problem solving or critical thinking skills? Absolutely. There's opportunities for us to always look at when we look at our students that are diagnosed with dyslexia or those that are not diagnosed. Is there continual things that we can do? Absolutely, but our teachers are great.
Thank you. Stacy.
I think when it comes to preparing our students to become productive members of a global society, it all starts with the environment. Creating and maintaining an environment in which kids feel valued, students feel like they belong, students feel like they're in a safety net of a school where they can kind of stretch themselves a little bit and still be viewed as okay by all parties involved. And I mean, in terms of their thinking and their discussions and so on in class. I think it's about giving teachers the time to be able to cultivate those relationships with young people at whatever stage that you're educating them, so that you can develop that rapport to where you can kind of learn a little bit more about, hey, this is how I can engage this person to go a little bit further with their thinking and learning and move them along kind of in the pace, in the direction that seems to be a best fit for them. But I think environment is a big part of it.
Thank you. Ruben.
Excuse me. Got a frog in my throat. Preparing the students for being a part of a global society, a community. So I guess as background, I'm a data analyst for our nation's government, and I work with a lot of folks who from around the country and from around the world. They've come here through great difficulty, and their stories are actually inspiring. And they always want to come here because of our values, that we're striving, that we're trying to do more, to be better. The world looks to us as helpers that we have when there's a crisis. So anyway, these values, I think, are what make our kids a part of the global community. And I'm interested in fostering those and continuing those. As I said, they're very strong because a lot of people come here for those.
Thank you. Dan?
All right. Well, I love this question because I see this often, and this is what motivates me to run for the board. I mean, we have got to put the focus on academics. Our goal is to create smart kids that are motivated. And as a guy who hires these students as they come out of college and careers, I'm looking for smart, motivated kids, flat out, period. I like to mentor them. I will pair them up with mentors if I don't have the time to do it myself. And we want to figure out what drives them. And it isn't always academics. It could be any number of things, but we've got to figure out what lights the fire inside these students' hearts and gets them really ready to get up out of bed every day and go to work, because they're going to need to earn an income to support their family. And life is going to hit them real hard in the face once they graduate. And I'm just the type of guy that to pair up with these students and show them a couple of things about how the real world works. And I hope to give that experience to the board as well.
Thank you. Roderick, you're up first for this next question. The national rate of teacher turnover is 12 to 16%. What should the district do to retain career classroom teachers?
So while I appreciate those numbers on showing the national average, what I would tell you is in Lee Summit, we do not currently have a retaining teacher issue. So what I think we need to do is make sure that we're continuing to do the things that we're doing, which is to try to show appreciation to our teachers, to continue to support them in the ways that we do as a district. And that's why we committed $12 million last year to our teachers. That is us showing them that we know that they deserve more, but this is a starting point. Also, not only that, we changed our board policy to allow teachers that come from other districts to be able to come to our district and we not start them as if they are a first-year teacher. And so number one, I think it's about showing that we're committed to teachers and giving them that support. But then also, I think we have the Grow Your Own program, which is also being able to allow students that come through our system to stay in our system as a teacher.
Thank you. Dan?
Well, we spend about 85% of our budget on teacher salaries, and I fully support paying our teachers the highest wages really in the state that we possibly can. So that would be number one. And where are we going to get that money? That can't just be a talking point, guys. You need somebody that actually knows how to scrub a contract, understand what the limits of liabilities are. Do we have all these technical terms in place, a waiver of subrogation, consequential damages, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on. All that equals dollars and cents that we can pull out of current projects and we can reallocate to teachers if need be, right? We need to put our resources in the right spot. We need somebody that knows how to go get that money. But once we have it, we pay for professional development. We give teachers ample time to prepare their lesson plans. We give them support. We give them behavioral coaching. We need to support these teachers.
Thank you. Juanice?
I think first we need to listen to teachers. We need to ask them what they need and then not come in with everything that we know. We know that you need this, but we're going to do this because this is what works best for our budget and this and that. We need to listen to teachers' needs and we need to make them the priority to meet those needs. And listening to teachers at every level of what their needs are, because elementary teachers' needs at a Title I school is going to be different than an elementary teacher's needs at another affluent school. The other things that we can do is to increase teacher support. Increasing salaries is wonderful at anybody's job. It's wonderful, but it's never wonderful if at the expense of that now there's no more support staff in the building or there's not enough support staff. Or when I take my day off, the building is using a para to fill my classroom when the para already has a job that they're supposed to be doing. Another thing we can do is that there's also the Education Cadet program, which partners with UCM, and students in their senior year can go ahead and start learning about teaching in LSR 7 classrooms.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Ruben?
Excuse me. Yeah, so this is, I'll go broad first. I think everyone understands that teachers' jobs are very difficult and they're not paid enough. You look at some of these other countries and they make almost double. So that would be one start. However, as it's already mentioned, there's there's only so many dollars, and in our community, it's going through this assessment process, and most likely we'll have another one as rocky as before. So it's where you can find other things that matter to the teacher in the classroom, slugging it through, trying to handle the workload. I know of one teacher who has to take home stuff because they're so their plate is quite full. So I think there's small things that we can look for that would improve their I can't even think of the word. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Bill?
Okay, I agree. We need to be listening to our teachers, and that's exactly what I've been doing. I've actually been talking to teachers since I announced my candidacy. And I will tell you, not a single teacher has complained about their income. I've got a lot of suggestions from teachers, but not one of them complained about their income. Now, I do agree that our teachers need to be very well compensated. But the things that I've been hearing directly from teachers is its environment. We have teachers that do not feel safe in their classrooms because they have violent students that are not being dealt with properly, in their opinion. We have workload issues with teachers where they do not feel like they're getting the support that they need. We're piling a lot of tasks on our teachers that they're not, in some cases, not even trained to deal with. We're asking them to deal with emotional issues of our children and things like that, as we've mentioned earlier. So I think that what we do need is to listen to the teachers and provide them with the environment that they're asking for. They're asking for a safe environment to work in and an environment that they're not overworked in.
Thank you. Stacy?
I can speak from firsthand experience that feeling appreciated and supported goes a long way in the education profession. And I don't want to upset the apple cart here, but I guarantee you that teachers take work home. We all do. And it's just the way the job works. But In terms of salary and benefits, the board must continue to be committed to its faculty and staff. As a district, we need to be competitive in salaries, but not just at the start of a career. Like I said previously, throughout the entirety of a career. We also need to provide the best possible insurance package around. In terms of classroom management and maintaining an academic environment, it would go a long way towards teacher retention if teachers knew from day to day, situation to situation, that not only would they be supported in their building, but they would be supported at central office when and if that issue arises. This is a big deal if you're working in one of our buildings right now.
Thank you very much. Let's see who's up. Bill, you're going to be up for this question. How would you like to see book challenges handled in the classroom and the library, in elementary and in secondary schools?
Personally, I don't see anything wrong with the process that we have in place now. It gives an opportunity for feedback to the system, and it gives the system an opportunity to address the issues that have been brought to its attention. So I'm not sure that the existing process needs to be modified, but I do believe that we need to find collaborative solutions to deal with these issues. And collaboration doesn't mean the majority votes. It means that the team gets together and they find a solution that everybody can get behind. And that's the way I would approach it.
Thank you. Juanice?
I think book challenges are fine if I'm the parent in the school district and I'm concerned that my kid brought a book home. For me to be able to say to my kid, I don't think this is an appropriate book for you to read because it conflicts with something in our home. However, when book challenges happen, they become very costly to the school district. So we keep saying we don't have money in the budget for this, that, or the other, or for programs, or to help kids with this, or to help teachers with that. But we continue every year to have the same books brought up to be challenged, and we have to pay for that. The taxpayers all pay for that. In a high school, the kids that are going in and getting books at a high school, if they're not allowed to read what they want, they're not prepared when they go to higher ed. They're not prepared to think critically. We really have to not look at books as this is not what I want my kid to read, but more so, is it benefiting someone else's kid?
Thank you. Stacy?
I think our district is very fortunate that we are able to employ librarians that are degreed, that are certified, and have been trained in the procurement of appropriate books for libraries for different age levels. They're well-versed in district initiatives. They are also well-versed in the district curriculum. And I truly have to believe that they work very diligently to make the best possible decisions about what books to choose to put on the shelves and whatnot. I fully support that a parent has the right to ask their child to not read a book from the library. That is certainly their prerogative. But Lee Summit has a policy in place if you want to challenge a book. But once a book has been through the challenge process and it's been upheld, I do believe that other students should have access to that material unless their parents have an objection. I believe it's a smart system. I believe it works. Honestly, I did not realize the dollar figure that was spent last year to look at all of those books. I'm hoping that will kind of settle down a little bit. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Dan?
So the book issue has to be the single most divisive question that I have experienced since my time doing these forums. I think this is the 5th forum that I've done. So the policy is this, just so everybody understands, right? You can get on the website, there's a media review committee page. You can either retain without restriction, you can retain with restriction, or you can remove the book. And ultimately at that point, the superintendent receives a recommendation, he reports that complaint, the BOA reviews that, and then votes on that with the committee's recommendation. So I think the issue at hand is it all boils down to sexually explicit content in the book. Guys, we're not banning Dr. Seuss, it isn't anything about race, it isn't LGBTQIA, it is sexually explicit content in the books. And while I do understand that we have professional librarians, I kind of wonder what's going on with the sexually explicit content in the books myself. So there's definitely more to investigate there for me.
Thank you. Roderick?
So I completely support the policy and the process that we take as a district. What I don't support is when we have individuals where their students don't even have access to these books. and they're being challenged. I don't support when we have individuals that will not read the book themselves, but then challenge them to the Board of Education. Ultimately, we should be stewards of the taxpayer money, and that is what the Board of Education has sought through the policy and the process that's in place. What I would also like to say is that's the way the board works. The majority is the decision, and the board has to support it. And so to not say that it should not be majority, I think is not reasonable when that's what we're all hoping to sign up for as we join the Board of Education. Lastly, I think it's important to say this. We should not be banning books in any kind of way. We should be supporting our teachers and the professionals because those are the experts.
Thank you. Ruben.
Yeah, I was present for all of the challenges and the discussion, and I thought it was quite informative, going back and forth and looking at these. And I think the policy seems to be fairly robust in multiple layers of review. But I would say that the only thing that it's lacking is the ability for a parent to say, I'm not disputing anything here, but I have particular reasons for my kid that I prefer them not to have access to it. And so I don't see that in there. And that seems to me that would alleviate a lot of these book challenges, because a parent could just say, I prefer for religious reasons or for whatever. We have a fairly significant immigrant community that we probably should consider. So that'd be my suggestion.
Thank you. So Dan, you'll be up first for this next question. Charter school expansion, open enrollment, and private school vouchers are current hot topics in the Missouri legislature. What are your views on the school choice movement?
So as a supporter of public education, I oppose the current legislation, the House Bill 1989, for the school choice. I am in favor of keeping those tax dollars in our district to support all the initiatives that we have. And when a student or a parent or family moves to send their student to private school, the private schools don't have to adhere to the same criteria that public education does. And so if you're a parent out there and you're kind of unsure on that, then that private school doesn't have to even accept your student. They could reject that for a number of things, religious exemptions, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm opposed to that legislation. I'm opposed to the vouchers. Thank you.
Thank you. Ruben?
Yeah, well, essentially it undermines public funds for the schools. That is the crux of it, when open vouchers and having to support students that the tax base is not there from another district, or vouchers paying for a student to go somewhere else, that type of thing. So it is definitely crucial to write policies that support our schools. However, I do see a hole where a school is not conducive for a particular student. I know of one or two actually who members of the LGBTQ community, and they had to leave a school district because of the bullying. And so considering them, it's hard to just completely dismiss their plight.
Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, I'm absolutely opposed to any public money going to private education. I don't want to see our children being penalized because we've repurposed taxpayer dollars into a different education system. I want all of our tax dollars in Lee Summit to stay in our school system. However, I do believe that we do need to be sensitive to the fact that there are some children that their parents are wanting to take them out of our school system for one reason or another. Their educational needs are not being met. And so those are parents that I want to talk to and find out why they're interested in leaving. But categorically, I'm 100% opposed to repurposing taxpayer dollars into private education. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to pause here for a moment. Dave, we have someone named Ron Freeman who doesn't belong here. Can you do your job? We'll go on to Roderick. Thank you.
Okay. I am happy to hear that everyone thus far is objecting to this notion of open enrollment vouchers, or even perhaps charter schools. I do not support any of that. I support public education. I support all of our dollars to support the students in the public system. When it does not happen, you can look at those districts and see that they become underfunded, which public education is already underfunded. You also see gaps of education also continue to widen amongst different subgroups. You also see disparities when it comes to preparing all students for success. And so I think that it's important that any Board of Education that serves a public school would be willing to come out and speak against any type of legislation that would come out of Jeff City that would defund our public schools.
Thank you very much. Stacy.
I am a huge advocate for public schools. So I am not a fan of the choice program that's being proposed. I am not a fan of the voucher possibility that's being tossed around in Jefferson City as well. I believe that the tax dollars intended to support the public local school district remain in the local public school district. Vouchers essentially increase the cost of education because when you siphon that money out, you still have the same level of need. You just have less money to pay for the need. And then you get into those horrible conversations about what do we cut? Or what do we do to increase our tax base again? So I don't see that as a positive for us at all. I do believe that parents have a choice if you want to move your student to a private school for whatever reason, but that is just it. That is your choice. Your tax dollars stay in the public system in which you reside.
Thank you. Juanice?
I do not support taking tax dollars from public education at all in any kind of way. I've had 4 beautiful girls that benefited from this public education, one of which went on to be a teacher. I understand public education at times does not feel perfect, but it's the system that we have right now to work in. And as a parent, when the system wasn't working perfectly for me, as I've lived through 3 redistrictings, I went and did my duty to talk to the board to explain why my kid can't be redistricted or moved, or when my kids' needs weren't being met, or their friends' needs weren't being met. I encouraged their parents to go and speak on their behalf and let them know why it needed to change. But public education is here to serve everybody. Even if you leave and go to a private school and you decide to come back, public education has to be here for you. So we need to keep our dollars in our public education system.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to lighten things up a bit, and Ruben, you're going to be up for this first one. What sex education did you receive in school? And what limitations to sex education are appropriate for Lee Summit schools?
Honestly, I don't remember a program or any of that. I probably learned more from my peers than anything. So yeah, the sex education is has been highly researched, structured to age appropriateness. So I don't have any concerns with that, really. It hadn't actually crossed my mind until just now, so I'm thinking on the fly. So I'm not really sure I would have anything to contribute. I'd have to think about it a little more.
Okay, thank you very much. Dan.
Well, I'm having to go way back here. graduated high school in 97. I believe it was 5th grade. Mrs. Ingram's class, I can remember it like it was yesterday. The boys go in one room, the girls go in another, and we found out what we all confirmed, at least later on the playground. So yeah, I think that was the way to roll. You know, I think kids develop obviously around a certain age. So before anything happens, the public education system has to step in and make sure that all kids have a basis of education. I would like to see the parents take the opportunity to step in, just like I've done with my little 4th grade daughter. Actually, a week ago, we had the birds and the bees talk, and I let mom take the majority of that. But yeah, that's how it happened for me, and that's how it happened for my family. So a lot of parent involvement, and the school needs to put in there when it's age appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Juanice?
I received an abstinence only sex education when I was in middle school. I grew up in Oklahoma, but anywho, I think in our district, it needs to go to a more inclusive sex education talk so that all kids know how to protect themselves. And it could be just the same as it is now, where parents have to sign off before you can go and watch your video with one teacher or the other. A parent has to sign off to say it's okay for you to watch the video. But if we had a more inclusive sex ed program, more kids would be able to protect themselves if something were to happen.
Thank you. Stacy?
I'll date myself a little bit. I don't remember that there was any parent permission slip, but we got split into the girls' room and the boys' room, and we all watched the video and then went home and was like, holy cow, is that true? I know that today in our district, they get to watch the hygiene video, and then a year later or 2 years later, they watch the male video or the female video, and then it's embedded in the high school health course that's mandated by the state of Missouri, that there's another unit with regards to sex ed that's part of what they do in high school. You know, it's a touchy subject, and as someone that taught sociology for a long time, I've heard some funny stories from various students through the years about different things like that. I think bottom line is it has its place in school. It's a neutral place to get at least a baseline message out to people that I think really is very important.
Thank you. Roderick?
So for me, I was a product of KCPS, and abstinence was the curriculum that was brought to us. Patricia Pearl, she is who led that, and I dearly appreciated that. What I will say is this: is I believe that there should be parental consent for information to be shared to students. But I do believe that that avenue should be available for students that may not have that additional support at home, that the basic knowledge of sex education can be shared to students with the consent of parents. And so that's what I believe.
Thank you. Bill?
Okay, I grew up on a farm, so I had a pretty good idea about how reproduction happens before I ever went to school. But my public school education consisted of the health class, I think, as a freshman in high school. And we had, your biology, basic biology, and then, the boys watched one film, the girls watched another film. So it was pretty fundamental. And I confess, I do not know what the existing program is in the Lee Summit school system. So I can't speak to that. My one thing I would say is that I do believe that there needs to be parental involvement, and the parents need to be fully apprised of what's going to be taught and so on. And they need to approve of that.
Okay, thank you very much. So Juanice, you're up next for this one.
Okay.
Have you ever met a transgender person? What is the best way for schools to accommodate students with gender identity issues?
I've met several transgender individuals. The best way to accommodate is to make sure that you, one, have a safe, inclusive environment for them to be in. Listen to them when they're telling you what their experiences are. Making sure that you have enough support within the school that can support the teachers, the staff, as well as the students with their understanding of transgender individuals or any other individuals that have a differing situation. Transgender people are regular people just like us. um, so I think the issue more so becomes when they don't feel safe, much like anybody else in our school doesn't feel safe, or you have terrible things that happened, like what happened in Oklahoma, and the adults in the building just stand with that, well, they brought it on themselves. That can never be okay.
Thank you. Bill?
Yes, I've met and I know transgendered folks, and I think the best way to make them feel welcome is to just treat them like people. I think that they are people, and they're I treat everyone the same, and I've been criticized for that, but I don't see the need for my interactions to be any different with those folks than they are with any other folks. Now, I do believe that we need to provide a very safe environment for all of our students, and that includes people that are transgendered or from any other community. I don't believe that we want to have anyone who doesn't feel like they're welcome, and they need to be in an environment where they can learn, because that's what they're there for. So I think that I would just encourage everyone to make them feel welcome and treat them just like everybody else.
Thank you. Stacy?
First of all, yes, I have met transgender people knowingly and also unknowingly, like till way later after the fact. And it didn't matter, person's person, didn't matter to me at all. I believe, and I've said this before, I value that all students need to feel like they fit in at school. We need to help them find their place. We need to help support them. We need to continue to try different things until we can help make those connections for them. Sometimes they need help. Sometimes all students need help. That really, but they should feel safe, just like anyone else in the building, and they should be valued for their talents, just like everybody else in that school.
Thank you. Ruben?
Yes, worked with and have a couple of my family members who are transgender. And in regards to what the school should do, it's very difficult to answer that question in such a short amount of time, because you have a spectrum. I know of some actual provocateurs who almost mockingly claim to be transgendered, but they're, like I said, they're almost provocateur. And then you have others who have struggled for years, and they're very vulnerable. So, like I said, it's a very, very difficult subject.
Thank you. Dan?
Yeah, I've met, I know, and I work with transgender people, and in a professional environment, we treat everybody the same, but understand that everybody has different needs and sensitivities. And I kind of think that the canned answer that you might hear is that we're going to develop policies and guidelines. We're going to draw, clear line in the sand. We're going to prohibit discrimination based on gender identity or expression. We're going to have inclusive curriculum. We are going to instruct our teachers and staff to provide comprehensive training. We're going to have anti-bullying programs. I think all of these things are important. And, it really boils down to me to just love your neighbor as yourself. Transgender students need to come to school to first receive an education. So I think that that's of utmost important, but they need to feel like they are included, they belong, and they are definitely not picked on.
Thank you. Roderick?
Yes, I personally do know transgender adults and students within our district. And what I would tell you is all of the things that we say should happen is not happening. We have students that are being bullied. We have students that are being talked about. We have students that are being mistreated. perhaps by their peers, or even others. And so I think it's important that the work that we're doing as a district continues. So in policy, yes, it's important to make sure that those things are in place to be able to protect all of our students. But I also think that we need to move from policy to actions. And so how do you move to actions? You make sure that there is PD available so that we all can understand different lifestyles that may exist within our district. But then also it's about the belonging. We should be treating everyone with respect and dignity.
Thank you very much. Roderick, you're up on this one. The Independent School District has joined 25% of Missouri schools by going to a 4-day school week. How do you feel about this change, and would you support it in Lee's Summit?
So I'm happy to answer this question. What I would tell you is I don't want this to be a conversation in Lee Summit. This is something that possibly could become a conversation. I know the board has had preliminary conversations with our superintendent around this topic. Ultimately, it should be our desire to educate and prepare our students for success in life. And we know that there's also many barriers that even exist with families. And so I think being able to go to a 4-day school, well, look at how that impacts our families that cannot afford childcare for that one day. Or let's look at the fact that we have educational gaps with the subgroups now. That is now an additional day that a kid potentially will be at home, not learning, not being held accountable to their studies. And so, no, I am not interested in having that conversation of a 4-day school week.
Thank you. Dan.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one. My wife and I were actually talking about that recently. So, I mean, there are some benefits, but I think that the cons kind of outweigh the pros. And, you know, if we were to do something like a 4-day school week, we would have to have longer school days. There would be issues with childcare because most parents work, 5 days a week, if not more, for the average family. So finding the logistics to make that work would be incredibly tough. And then, I mean, ultimately, these students are coming to school to receive an education. So the impact on learning would be really detrimental. So I would not support that.
Thank you. Juanice.
Think about all the different ways that we have tried to do learning with block days and how, students get confused enough with block days when we switch to the half day, which is now on Fridays, and the throes of which it threw parents into a tizzy of, what do you mean late start? I got to be to work at this time. And what are we going to do? And what had to be implemented? I also came from the independent school district. So I've talked to several of my former colleagues, and there's still some kinks to be worked out there. The jury's still out on that. It doesn't sound like the greatest idea to me. I know I see the struggles that they've had over there. Obviously, it creates a larger barrier to learning for kids because now you're asking them to retain material for 4 days and be off 3 days every week or so. So that math's never going to math right when we're already talking about a gap that's already there.
Thank you. Ruben?
Yeah, so I think this is, if I remember correctly, relatively more recent push for 4 days. And in my mind, it's a solution to a problem. And so, my few talks with independents, they had problems that we don't have. So the 4 days seems to be a solution for an issue we don't have. And that's a massive administrative undertaking where we have quite a few services for 18,000 students, 3,000 employees. I mean, that's exceptionally disruptive that for a solution to a problem I just don't see happening. It's just not something I even considered.
Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, I will tell you, I think it's a bad idea. Just to put it bluntly. I mean, the state mandates 1,044 hours of instruction for these students every year. That means they're going to have to go to a longer day. We've got almost 18,000 students. We're talking about changing and disrupting their schedules. That's 18,000 schedules that are going to change. You know, families are going to be disrupted. Not to mention the fact that we already have a problem with the achievement gap and other students that are not learning the things that they need to learn whenever they're going to school 5 days. So I just think it's an idea that was thrown out there, I believe, so they could try to recruit teachers and retain teachers, not do a better job of educating our students. So I believe that, you know, our job here at the Lee Summit School District is to educate our students. And I don't see how we can do a better job of that in 4 days than we can in 5 days. Thank you.
Thank you. Stacy?
I think the General Assembly is in the midst of passing legislation that would cause if there would have to be a local election before our district would be eligible to do this, as our size is over the number. So the board wouldn't unilaterally be able to implement a 4-day week at this point anymore. Either, I don't believe. I think there's some penalties involved in that. So in that respect, I don't know that this is going to go anywhere in Lee Summit anyway. The superintendent has come out and said that he's flat out opposed to it. So I just don't know that I see this dialogue happening. I will say this: when we had the intervention day in the COVID time, when we had the Wednesdays, when we figured out that we could start bringing kids in and have them come in and have some additional instruction and some additional supports and some additional time with us with regards to trying to help scaffold their learning, it was actually really pretty darn nice. But there's a lot of logistics to that, and that's a whole different topic. So at this point in time, I just don't see a 4-day week being a viable option in Lee Summit.
Thank you. So Bill, you're up for this next question. Does the school district allow homeschool students to enroll in a school district class to participate in sports or other activities? What are the requirements, if any?
I have to confess, I do not know the answer to that question. If I
Okay,
understood the question correctly, I don't know the answer.
okay. We'll see if somebody else does. Stacy?
Yes, we do. And yes, I can answer. Yes, we do allow homeschool students to come in and take particular classes as they request. We allow them to participate in activities, sports, clubs, after school items, music, all those kinds of things. They're eligible just like any other student.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Roderick?
Yes, that is correct. We do allow homeschool students to partially enroll within our district. And then there's MISHA requirements for them to be able to participate in our sports.
Could you explain what MISHA is?
So MISHA is basically the governing body that deals with all of our sports, our athletics.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I have a whole lot to add here. I think that they're correct. So as I believe it was as of January 2022, this was allowed basically for homeschool students to participate in extracurricular activities as well as take some classes under certain conditions. So yeah, I think you can go over to the website and inquire about this and any other procedures, I guess, regarding the enrollment for anybody wondering.
Thank you. Juanise?
Yes, they've been allowed to for years to take to take classes at the high school level or middle school. If there's a particular class, there have been lots of homeschoolers that would do PE or art through the public education. They can join all of the sports and activities. My girls played soccer and ran cross country, and they had several homeschool young ladies that ran with them and played with them. They can do all the clubs, which is why it's important to keep public dollars in public education, even if you're only participating in it part-time, because if you're gearing it out to other places, then those kinds of things stop. And I know for a lot of homeschool parents, that's a way to keep their kids connected, especially since many of them live in the neighborhood with other kids that go to the high school or the middle school. And that's an opportunity for them to kind of see the best of both lives, you know, hang out with their friends at school, but then come back and do curriculum at home.
Ruben?
I'm intrigued by the question. If I'm understanding it, this came from the public. So
That's
perhaps they're interested in putting their kids into our school, at least partially. I do know that there is I believe like a job fair Saturday at the MIC. If I remember correctly, it was like advertised for all students, even homeschool or can't quite remember. Anyway, yeah, the value of public school even extends to those um, who are not partaking on a day-to-day basis, that and they see the value in these activities, that they pursue that. They look into this. They ask questions in forums. So there's a lot of value in public education that sometimes homeschoolers may not, I don't know, fully appreciate.
Okay, thank you. So Dan, you're up for this next question. Please tell us about an elementary or high school teacher who influenced your desire to be on the school board.
Okay, yeah, this is going to be a shout out to Mr. Cross. His name's Earl Cross. He actually just passed away. He was a longtime childhood advocate for public school for me. He was the first teacher to actually take me to church with his family. As I grew up, we hung out a lot with his family, and when I was able to get in high school, he ran the drafting class at the Fort Osage Votech, where I took all of his classes and later came back to teach once I graduated the Votech. Mr. Cross was the most like pure heart, awesome guy. Even though he did say I was a whiner at times, I still think he was incorrect on that. But he was a great guy. He motivated me to be the human that I am right now, as I currently work in the engineering and construction industry. And I got to give a big shout out to Mr. Cross and his family.
Thank you. Ruben?
Well, the first one that came to my mind was my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Say. Very sweet lady. She was double jointed, and anyway, she was always showing us the class, and she was very personable, someone who could talk to anyone and enjoyed talking to anyone, and not necessarily to tell them about her, but to inquire and to figure out what was going on with you and your life story, because you were an interesting person to her. I don't know where she's at now. Obviously, that was quite a few years ago, but I distinctly remember many, I mean, from kindergarten. Very nice lady. Yeah.
Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, this is going to be a shout out to Mrs. Buchanan. Mrs. Buchanan was my first grade teacher. I grew up in Arkansas and we didn't have kindergarten. So my first formal education in the public school system was Mrs. Buchanan. And she instilled in me a desire to learn, or she cultivated a desire that was already there. And she convinced me that if I got a good education, there wasn't anything that I couldn't do. And I want to shout out to Mrs. Buchanan because I have always valued education highly, and having a good education has helped me to be the successful person that I am today. And I would encourage everyone to encourage their children to get that good education, just like Mrs. Buchanan encouraged me to get the good education. And I want to be a part of the school board so I can hopefully be an inspiration to some of these other children and inspire them to get a good education as well, and help them provide the systems so that they can have that opportunity to do just that.
Thank you. Stacy?
This is kind of a hard question because I really feel blessed that I had a number of teachers along the way that really influenced me, that led me down the path of becoming an educator. And honestly, in terms of running for an office, it would be past students that along the way were, you really ought to run for office. You really ought to do this, that maybe put the idea subconsciously in my head. But a shout out to Coach Grosso, my high school basketball coach, and my algebra teacher, who taught me so much about hard work, self-discipline, and when you put your mind to something, don't let other people tell you what you can't do. Just keep working, stay in your lane, and eventually you're gonna succeed. And I think that a lot of that self-motivation has has come into play as we've all been working our way through this campaign. The other funny thing, I guess I would say, is that the only time I've ever been elected to anything in my life would be my freshman year of high school when I got elected to Raytown's Young Citizen Day, and I got to be the assistant city attorney for one day of my life. So that's my claim to fame.
Thank you. Juanice?
Well, I'm going to say it's going to be my favorite teacher is going to be my daughter, Jocelyn Williams, who's a fifth grade teacher, sorry, at Westview. And then I'm going to give a shout out to her fourth grade teacher, because at the end of her fourth grade year at Trail Ridge, she got in the car. We had been redistricted to Woodland at that point. And she said, "Mom, I'm going to be a fourth grade teacher when I grow up, just like Miss Hayes." And every year from that point on, she's stuck with that she was going to be a fourth grade teacher, was an education cadet in high school, went to UCM, came back, and now she taught second grade. Now she teaches fifth grade, and she absolutely loves and adores it. But a teacher that influenced me would be, I grew up in Oklahoma. Her name is Clara Looper, and she is a civil rights icon in Oklahoma. She led the first sit-in in a diner in Oklahoma. She taught American government 10th grade, and she taught me everything I needed to know about the government. This is how I understand the voting process and what parts of the government do. So shout out to Miss Looper, even though she's passed away.
Thank you. Roderick?
I've had many great teachers in my life, and so many that I won't even name because I don't want one to feel left out. But I will say that what led me to want to serve on the Board of Education was not the good teacher, but it was one particular teacher that I will not name that made me feel a certain kind of way, made me feel that I was not worthy of accomplishing something, of being successful. It was a teacher that made me feel isolated when I had to go to a special ed classroom to receive services to be able to help me through some of my struggles. It was that teacher that made me say, when I have my own family, when I am able to serve someone else, that no other child should experience that feeling.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I've been asking you guys questions. Ruben, you're up for this last question. What's a question you wish I'd asked you, and how would you answer it?
Well, you got me there. A question? Well, I'd like, I'm kind of interested in other people and hearing what they have to say and their life experiences. It's one of the reasons I really enjoy my job is I just have a lot of different connections with a vast array of backgrounds. And it's why I enjoy running around and talking to our representatives and having long coffee with them just to, hear what's going on in their lives and how they're navigating the wild, what's going on in our state house, or what's not going on. So I guess I'd ask you, or why you didn't ask me about your background. I know we heard a little bit about you, but so that'd be, I don't know, that's what I'm interested in.
Well, I'll tell you that I'm a docent at the Nelson Atkin Arts Gallery. Dan, what question do you wish I'd asked?
This is, I think, my fifth forum. I'm probably over 50 some odd questions now that I've answered publicly, recorded, and to be shared all over the internet. We haven't really asked a whole lot of questions about academics. We ask a whole lot of questions around the symptom, but not necessarily the cause of issues. And I can't really address it in the final 30 seconds that I have left here, but I wish that this community could spend a little bit more time diving into the deep issues and not necessarily the feel goods. I'm not going to play off your emotions. I'm here to make sure that your child has a successful career post graduation. And as a community, I want to band together. I want to get everybody on the same page. I want to be diplomatic and really work through that as a group with our existing board. We got an awesome district, awesome teachers, awesome students, and we need to keep that up.
Thank you. Juanice?
I wish that all of these, this is the second time we were asked, what's a question that we wish you would have asked? I wish you would have asked, what's the last book we read? And so I am a reader. I read about 250 books a year. Last book that I read was called The Girls Who Went Away, and it was about teenage girls in the 40s and 50s when they would get pregnant and they would have to leave, and the trauma that was around, that surrounded around having to give birth and give their babies up for adoption or whatnot. Can you tell I'm a social worker yet? Of course. So it was very interesting and whatnot. So I wish that there were, that would have been one of the questions, because I'm always looking for a good book from somebody. So.
Thank you. Roderick?
I wish you would have asked, what makes you different from everyone else on here? And the way that I would have answered that is, it's not emotions, it's reality. That we have students that are struggling in our schools, and we need to be able to meet the needs of all of our students, regardless of what backgrounds they come from, regardless of the economic status of their families, regardless of the dynamic of their families, and that we meet that need so that they can truly be prepared for success in life through our public education system. When we educate our students, then we set them up for success, because knowledge truly is power. And that's why it's important that we continue to do what we're doing as a district and continue to pour resources into our teachers, into our students, creating opportunities for them so that they can thrive and succeed in life. Thank you.
Thank you. Stacy?
Oh, I was flipping through my notes to try to come up with something that I hadn't already talked about. It's been mentioned, but we never really took a deep dive into achievement gaps in any of these forums. I feel like I could write a book on how to close the achievement gap initiatives, but the bottom line, I believe, about the achievement gap is it all comes down to the environment. Closing the achievement gap is the hundreds of teachers district-wide reaching students and developing authentic relationships with them. It's accomplished hundreds of different ways every day in each of our classrooms, because everyone has their own style and their own personality. And it's about the district providing the environment with small enough classes for these relationships to become personalized. It's about allowing teachers time to think and plan for student differences. It's about supporting students when they do struggle to maintain motivation. It's about removing things from the ever-growing list of to-dos each year that students and teachers get overwhelmed with. And it's about consistent administrative support. And I believe the board is ground zero for all of this to happen.
Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, I wish you would ask about specifically about literacy. Literacy is a topic that I feel very strongly about. And I will tell you that is an area where we have a lot of room to improve in our school district. We have, as I've mentioned earlier, we're producing a lot of great students, but we do have an achievement gap. And up to 20% of our students have some form of dyslexia. We need a better earlier identification system and early intervention system. If we're ever going to address the achievement gap, we have to address literacy. That is the root of the problem in education. In the achievement gap is lack of literacy. And so we need to address it, not the symptoms, but the problem. And we can't do that unless we have early identification and early interventions for that issue.
Thank you very much. So we've come to the end of the evening. I want to thank you very much for your participation and your excellent answers. It's coming now time for your 2-minute closing statements. And while you're thinking about what you want to say, I'd like to encourage all the citizens to show up on April 2nd. I voted today, so I don't have to think about it anymore. So that everybody can have a great turnout. And I want to advise everybody again that a recording of this will be available both on the league website and on YouTube. Give us about 24 hours for the YouTube. So again, in random order, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement, and we'll start with Roderick Sparks.
Again, thank you for this opportunity to be able to share with you on this evening. Let me share what we've been able to accomplish these last 3 years. We've been able to pour in $12 million because of the taxpayers to be able to continue to increase the pay of our staff, but then also to look at not only our teachers, but also our classified staff, our paraprofessionals, our facility staff, our bus drivers, and to be able to get them at a livable wage. I think it's also important to note that our dyslexia, we talk about reading, and it's important to know that we have a 504 coordinator that is going to be designated just for our dyslexia students, so that they can be able to continue to address those needs. And that's because of parents that are advocating for their students. We've also implemented a policy so that our students, that are juniors and our seniors, many of you probably have seen that even in your news feed, to where they can apply to have direct access to the Board of Education so that they can know that their voices are heard and that they matter. When you look at all of our subgroups, our business roundtable, our CAC, getting prepared for our 2025 bonds, when you look at all of those different things, you can see that we are trying to literally be transparent and involve this community, because we know that LSR 7 would not be great without this full community. And so when you look at the track record of our board this last 3 years, we are most definitely meeting the needs of all of our students, we're meeting the needs of our family, and we're continuing to work at it. Are we perfect? No. But are we most definitely doing the things that is necessary to meet the needs of all of our families? The answer is yes. And that's why I'm asking you to continue to support me for another 3 years on the Board of Education, so that we can continue the momentum of meeting the needs of all of our students, and so that they can be successful in life. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stacy Myers.
When I look at the school board, I see an incredible representation of our wonderful community. I see a counselor. I see people from the medical field. I see people from private industry. But what I do not see is an educator's perspective, especially with board member Murdoch not seeking re-election. The Board of Education needs an educator with classroom experience that can be that voice in support of students, teachers, staff, and families. With over 30 years of service as a classroom instructor, I am more than qualified to be that person. LSR 7 needs someone who will listen and be direct, someone that understands what life is truly currently like in a school, someone that genuinely champions public education and is not beholden to anything other than what is best for kids. That is what I will bring in my role on the board. I've experienced firsthand how promoting academic excellence with consistent support brings out the very best, which is exactly what our students, teachers, and families deserve. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting this forum this evening. And I appreciate everyone who takes time to watch this at home. I appreciate your vote on or before April 2nd, so I can get started in my next step of serving the Lee Summit community. Thank you for your vote.
Thank you. Reuben Mitchell.
Yes, I appreciate everyone showing up or watching this later on. Thank you for your all efforts. I know this, this takes a little time to put together and test, and you're quite good at it, though, I have to say. So I appreciate that, because I enjoy, as a parent, hearing from everyone, the perspectives and what's going on in the district and the pulse of the district. So one of the things I'm very much interested in passing along and finding for our kids in the district, not just mine. I have 3, and I'm very, very interested in them, obviously, but I want them to be great citizens, well-educated, motivated, and it seems to be that there is not one cut and dried way to do this. People are not machines. It's not a bunch of numbers. There's something about the human experience that is oftentimes intangible that I am really, really curious about, and how to pass that along to my children, to the district's children, to have this place as a continue to be a beacon to draw families in. This is what I want. I don't know what it is, but this is what I want. I'm trying to get my kids over here. I'm going to move in here. And so as a board member, that's what I would strive to work for. Working with my peers, my colleagues who have a vast amount of experience, overcoming challenges. I know some of the folks here have overcome immense challenges. And that is truly preparing our kids for the future.
Thank you very much. Bill Haley?
Yeah, I'm the candidate. I've got over 30 years of a proven track record of leadership in world-class organizations. Not everyone uses the same definition of leadership. Leadership is not a 4-3 majority pushing policies through. Leadership is achieving collaboration and finding solutions that everyone can get behind. And if I'm elected, what I intend to pursue. I want to pursue solutions that everyone on the board and everyone in our school district can get behind. And that involves collaboration from teachers, from parents, from the administration, and from the taxpayers. So leaders find solutions that everyone supports. And I have a track record of doing that. I have a track record of making payroll for over 30 years for literally thousands of employees. My experience lends itself to serving on this board, the 5th largest school board in the state of Missouri. And I'm asking for your vote so I can provide that leadership to this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Blake?
Well, for everybody watching, I want to thank you. As we conclude this important school board forum, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each one of you for your commitment to our community's education. I want to say thanks to my constituents here on this call, Roderick, Lenise, Bill, Ruben, Stacy. I consider you guys all friends, and I don't think that we necessarily even have to win a seat on the school board to work together to brighten these students' future. So I look forward to working with y'all in some sort of capacity, no matter what the results are on the April 2nd election. To our teachers out there, I recognize the issues that you are facing to the best of my ability, and you have my dedication to help work with you through challenging times. And, you know, I just want to help everybody succeed. I want these students to be as successful as they can possibly be. These are our future leaders for tomorrow. In our pursuit of excellence, we shouldn't lose sight of our primary mission, when that is to provide our students with the best possible education, to have access. Every student should have equitable access. That means prioritizing academics. That means high quality instruction should be accessible. And ultimately, they should be prepared for success in college, careers, and beyond. With this great opportunity comes with great responsibility. We owe it to our students and our parents and our community to hold ourselves to the highest standards of accountability. We've got to be transparent in our actions. We've got to be responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. Together, guys, I think that we can do this. I'm really excited to serve with you on the board if you'd have me for that position. So I just want to say thanks. I want to say, congrats to everybody so far. And we got 2 weeks left. Thanks for everybody for bearing with us. I'm asking for your vote on April 2nd. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And Juanice Williams?
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for the opportunity to share my vision. In our district, we have many strengths, and I've always been proud of my LSR 7 students. I was always happy to go and meet with their teachers and see all the growth as the district has continued to grow over the many years that we've been here. We've done lots of great things. I think we can do more to help close the achievement gap as well as educational disparities between students. I've always had a passion for children, and I've spent my entire career serving some of the most vulnerable families and trying to help children succeed. I believe we need to invest in children's success by helping teachers and school leaders be better prepared to meet each student's unique needs and meeting each student where they are in the educational journey by providing proper support to every school. Embedded social work programs are in every other school district, and I've never met a teacher that has said we don't want a social worker here. Social workers can bring families and schools together to create a stronger educational community. The education systems are, it's a complex system. And as a longtime parent, as a former school social worker, and as a current higher educator in higher ed, I believe I can bring a unique perspective to the board. I have always been an advocate for public education. I have always been an advocate for parents. And I think that that's what makes me uniquely qualified to be a board member.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
My sincere thanks to all of you for your willingness to perform public service. It's so important in our community. To the voters of Lee's Summit, you have 6 candidates running for 2 seats. You've got a tough job to figure out which 2 you're going to vote for. I'm going to turn things back over to Mitra.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, candidates. Thank you, audience, for your interest in the April 2nd election. The recording of this forum will be available on the League's website, lwvkc.org. Candidates, encourage your mother-in-laws to see how well you did. Please take a moment to share our forums via your Facebook, Nextdoor, and other social media channels. And remember, for voting and candidate information, visit lwvkc.org and vote411.org. Thank you and good night.